Welcome to the Money and Mortgages podcast. I'm your host, Adam Coleman, accredited financial counselor and mortgage planner. Join me as I speak with fellow industry experts on all things personal finance.
So I'm happy to be joined by Adam Coleman, a certified divorce lending professional with Loan Pronto. Adam, I find in my work as a divorce coach and mediator that often people going through divorce don't deal with the details related to the marital home until it's way too late and decisions have been made that usually can't be undone. And I think it's critical that people work with a mortgage lender that is a divorce specialist at the very beginning of the divorce process, which is really why I wanted to talk to you today. So, from your perspective, what's one thing people going through a divorce should know about mortgages and divorce?
Yeah, good question. And Kelly, thanks for having me on here. So I think that really hits at the main purpose of what we were trying to get at with the certified divorce lending professional. So we're through the Divorce Lending Association, and they kind of oversee our whole role in the process. But it's really that distinction between the traditional mortgage lender, which I've done that for years and years before becoming a certified divorce lending professional. And it is a very different mindset. So, like traditional mortgage lending, typically you're getting involved maybe very late in the process. Kind of like you said, it's too late to where there's not enough that can be done with the divorcing, clients that are going through this process. There's everything is set in stone. The attorneys have basically done all the work that they were going to do, and they know what alimony is, they know what child support already is, they already have all this set. In a lot of cases, the divorcing clients think that they have a goal in mind of, all right, I'm going to keep this house, and the attorneys have said I can, and here's what the alimony is. And they have this in their mind of, here's what my new normal is going to look like. And then in most cases, my role as a traditional mortgage lender was to come in way too late. And then we're usually telling them that, unfortunately, something happened in the divorce settlement that doesn't conform with lending guidelines. So, and they're very arbitrary in a lot of cases. And a lot of times the attorneys just don't have that good of a handle on the mortgage guidelines because they've got other things that they're needing to be experts on. I don't think we expect them to actually know everything, but I think some people that are going through a divorce, it's such a stressful time. They expect the attorney to kind of step in and know everything about everything, and they just don't in most cases. So,
If I can stop you there, because I think that
yeah.
that is such a critical point. I am a big proponent of the fact that you need to have a team to advise you during
Yep.
divorce, because really your attorney is an expert on the legal aspects of divorce. To your point, they may understand somewhat the uniqueness of divorce and mortgages, but they're not an expert there. And they could miss some things that could be critical to your settlement if you're not working with a divorce mortgage specialist. So I love that you point that out.
Yeah, and I appreciate that because there's so many specialists out there that I don't think people really truly understand the value of. I mean, there's financial planners that are specific in divorce, there's divorce coaches, there's a therapist, there's child support or child custody experts. The list goes on and on. And I think most people maybe steer clear of that, just thinking that it's going to be so expensive to bring in all these other people, but you're really just kind of you're reallocating resources from letting your attorney spend their hourly time doing this, which they're probably going to be the more expensive option when it comes to hourly expenses. Whereas you could bring in a financial planner or a divorce coach or somebody else like that that may have some additional fees, obviously, but it's not additional on top of the attorney's fees. And usually, in most cases, to where it should be cheaper, just more efficiently handled along the way. Our role is a little bit unique just because really, I would say out of most any other resource, we're a free resource for people that you can bring us in early on. And like you said, I would agree. The earlier you can bring in somebody like myself or another certified divorce lending professional, the better, because all of our consults are free. So we don't charge anything for doing this work. We only make money just like a traditional mortgage lender would. If you happen to do a mortgage, then we can help you with that process and go through the whole thing like a traditional mortgage lender. But our role is really so much more encompassing than that, starting from the negotiation stages of the divorce, right at the early stages to kind of talk through, get us involved so that we can discuss, all right, here's kind of how much alimony you might need to qualify for this. here's how many months that you would need to set up before you can even do anything. Here's how many months you would need to continue that for after the loan closes in order to even accomplish your goals. And it's really just laying this framework of here's what your options are, figure out what's realistic in the mortgage world, and then you can discuss that with the divorce attorneys and the financial planners, figure out if that kind of fits in with your ultimate goals. But don't do it backwards, where you figure out what your goals are, talk with the divorce attorney, and then realize, oh, I can't get a mortgage for what I'm hoping to do. So I can't even keep this house that I've fought 6 months, a year for all the way down the road. So,
Or gave up everything else for the
right.
house. And
Well,
I
yeah, and they don't have that conversation a lot of times too. Like to your point, the attorneys are not financial experts. They're the good ones maybe can go through and explain budgeting and explain what that new normal is going to look like. But I would say the majority of them are not going through that. So a big part of my role is to really have that conversation with them and going, all right, you're used to paying this on your mortgage, you're used to having this kind of budget each month. What is this really going to look like going forward? Because as you know, rates are obviously higher now than what they probably were when they had their existing mortgage. So that's going to change. They may have to pull cash out for an equity buyout to pay off their ex. That's going to change the new mortgage payment. So it's all these variables that are changing. And it really could be completely changing their dynamic of what they're used to spending each month. And you just won't know that, early enough if one of us isn't getting involved at that early stage. Whereas you might find this out later and then you're like, I can't afford that house. Like that's twice as what I'm paying right now. I'm not going to stay here. And then you've already decided to keep the house and now you're having to sell it a few months later. And that opens up a whole nother can of worms, unfortunately. So.
Well, and I want to remind people who are watching this that you're also a financial planner as well. So you have that expertise, which not all divorce mortgage lenders have. So I want to
Right.
make sure that people understand that unique, aspect of your work. I'd like to go back for a second because one of the things that you talked about is by bringing a divorce mortgage specialist into the mix early on, you're able to help them understand some of the things that they need. We talked about income in order to qualify, income in place, that you mentioned it needs to be there for a period of time before they can qualify and a period after. And I think one of the things that's really important for people to understand about that is there's a lot of room to negotiate how you do things. And when you have to have a certain amount of income to qualify for a mortgage, if you know this in advance and they've worked with you, they can work with their attorneys or their mediators to get some temporary orders in place, which puts that income in place, well in advance. And so I love that you bring that up.
Yeah, and that's usually, honestly, very top thing on my homework that I'm giving to people after a consult. It's like get temporary orders set up. We need to get the clock start ticking a little bit because, like you said, it can wait 6 months before you can really use it. A lot of people want to get moving a little faster than that. So this at least starts the clock a little bit earlier. Otherwise, you're waiting until the divorce is finalized, then maybe child support and alimony start, and then you're waiting another 6 months after that. And then unfortunately, a lot of times it won't continue for the necessary 3 years afterwards. And then you can't use any of it. Meanwhile, these people are thinking, oh, I've got all this income coming in. I'll be fine. I can easily afford the mortgage payment. But then you have a mortgage lender basically saying, none of that's qualified income. We can't use any of it, unfortunately, because it wasn't structured properly in the divorce process.
Well, and I think another thing for people to consider is their support may not cover what they need to qualify. So they may
Right.
have to make negotiations in the process to take support for a shorter period of time so that it's a higher amount, right? Or to not take an asset, but to take support, a higher level of support. Like there's all sorts of different ways that you can get creative. But if they haven't talked to somebody like you to begin with, they don't even know how to
Right.
start.
Yeah, the asset is the big one. We see that a lot more frequently is they're getting lump sum investment accounts. So they have this big investment account. They think, oh, I'd rather have the lump sum now as opposed to, doling it over a monthly period for alimony. Whereas I can't use, and any lender can't use a lump sum payment for income purposes. So it doesn't help us. It might help you with a down payment, but it's not going to actually qualify for the mortgage. So like you said, in a lot of cases, what we'll do is try to negotiate maybe a smaller lump sum, but then a larger monthly alimony amount, or like you said, changing the terms around. So if they had alimony for, let's say, 5 or 10 years, maybe we don't need it quite that long, but we can increase the monthly amount and make it good for 4 years, for example. There's a whole report that we do, and we can provide it to the divorce team that basically shows, all right, here are several options for refinancing or buying a new house. Here's kind of the minimum that you would need for additional income. And then they can actually use that report to basically decide, all right, what's feasible, what can we negotiate, and what can't we? And then it just really narrows down the focus a lot more to where we're really getting a tangible, realistic goal at the end that we can actually achieve afterwards, that's really the whole point of all this, is we just want to make sure people are going down that right path.
Absolutely. I think this is fantastic. And that report that you're talking about is again something that really only a divorce specialist in mortgages could do because they understand the language and the issues that need to be addressed for people that are going through divorce. So I want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to reach out to you and contact you if they want to learn more about how you can assist them. So maybe you can share how people can reach you.
Yeah, yeah. My website's pretty easy. It's just adamcolemanmortgage.com. And then if you're ever looking for a certified divorce lending professional, if it's an area that I can't help with, you can actually Google find a CDLP. And that also gets you access to our nationwide group because it's obviously not just me. So there's a lot of us out there. So definitely, I think that's a great free resource that is very unknown out there. We've been around for a decade, but that would definitely be a good resource to start with and early as possible. I would say there's no harm in getting us involved as early as you're thinking, even prior to going through the divorce. If you're just kind of on that cusp of thinking about what your options are, we can help with that ahead of time. And again, it's free. So
Well, I'm so glad you brought that. I was going to wrap this up, but that is, I think, a really important point that I just want to spend a minute or so on. So often people stay in a marriage because of the fear of the unknown of, am I going to be able to afford to own a home, to stay in this home? What can I do here? And so what I'm hearing you say is that you're really a resource for those people as well, to be able to crunch some numbers, to be able to see what type of income they would need to have so that they can start thinking about what they could qualify for down the road. So I think that that's really important.
yeah, and the more information they can get ahead of time, the better. And then most of us are also trained well enough in the overarching concept of divorce to know, all right, here's the path that you might want to take. Like, because there's obviously different types of divorce. You've got the mediation, you've got collaborative divorce, you've got litigation, depending on the situation, it might be necessary. So that can also be a helpful resource to maybe narrow the search down so that you know where to go after we talk, if you do end up going down that divorce process instead of just completely flying blind. So there's a lot of free resources on my website as well. If anybody ever looks at that, there's a lot of other information, not specific about mortgage, but really just divorce in general too.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Adam. This has been really great information to share with everybody. And again, I just want to make sure that everybody understands the importance of working with a divorce specialist in mortgages, and to understand that they should be one of the first people that you reach out to. Your home is probably one of the biggest assets you have, so make sure that you are managing that really thoughtfully. So again, thank you, Adam, and hopefully we'll get a chance to chat again sometime.
Yeah, thank you.